On that day, I will say that the scams here in Canada are so sophisticated.
Hi everyone and welcome back to Chatz with Charnie. This week we're continuing with our series South Africans Abroad. But before we get into this week's guest, don't forget to like and subscribe to the video and click the notifications bell so that you always know when a new video is available. This week we have Jade Abrahams in Canada. Welcome Jade to Chatz with Charnie. Please tell us a bit about yourself, how long you've been in Canada for, and which city you're in.
Hey, firstly, I just want to start off by thanking you for having me here today. I think you're doing such a great job at sort of informing people on what it's like to move abroad and how to do so. So yeah, just thank you for sort of what you're doing.
Oh, thanks, Jade.
Um, so yes, I'm Jade. I'm based in Vancouver, Canada, which is on the west coast of North America. And I moved up here with my husband, Nathan, in February 2019. I'm originally from Cape Town. I studied at UWC with you.
Yes.
And then after finishing my studies in 2013, I joined PwC to do my articles in financial services. This later on helped me to secure a short-term secondment to New York, which was amazing. I got to live with one of my close friends, basically all expenses paid, and it was like a magical experience. And then after returning from New York, I joined PwC's deal team doing financial due diligence for various local and international merger and acquisition clients. From there, like if you fast forward 2 years, my husband and I got married. And then 3 months after that, we hopped on a plane to come to Canada. So at the time, we actually knew very little about Canada. The only thing we did know is that we wanted to sort of go on some kind of adventure after we got married. And we sort of looked at different countries and different avenues. We initially looked at New York, but I think that was sort of a little bit tricky at the time, and it was taking quite a while to sort of find appropriate posts for us. And then a friend of Nathan's actually reached out to him. She was based in Vancouver, working at the KPMG offices, and she asked him for his CV, and yeah, everything just happened very quickly from there, and yeah, we found ourselves in Canada a couple of months later.
Oh, wow. And that's so amazing that you got to move over with your husband and, together, because it makes the process so much easier. So
Yeah.
in order for you guys to move over to Vancouver, did you need like a work permit? Was it a work visa? And what was the process to get that?
Yeah, so for us, it was a little bit of not a weird one, but kind of. So I was at PwC, and then Nathan was at KPMG at the time. So he sort of got in touch with the local office here in Vancouver. He did an interview, and then they said that they wanted him to bring him over on a long-term secondment. So initially, it was supposed to be like a 2-year stint. So what they did is they helped both him and me with our visas. He had sort of like a visa tied to KPMG, a working visa tied to KPMG, and then they gave me an open work permit. So KPMG basically like sorted both of our sort of relocation out. And then in terms of what we did to sort of like get everything sorted out, some of the things that we needed to do was like get our police clearance. We had to do a medical exam. That was quite a big, yeah, well, not really. It was a bit of a hold up in the process. I think getting like a actual date to do the exam, because we were working on such a short timeline. They also did like a sponsorship letter for Nathan. We did biometrics, and then we had to send through sort of like our qualifications. And then other than that, it's sort of just like the normal sort of immigration documents where you sort of fill out the forms with your passport details and all of that kind of information. So yeah, he was on a close permit, and I was on an open work permit. But then at the same time, I sort of, well, before I left South Africa, I contacted our PwC deals office and got in contact with a partner here. So I ended up doing a transfer to PwC. I only signed my contract when I got to Canada, but it was basically a contract that they would basically give to like any other person who was already in Canada, because I was on this open work permit.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that makes sense. So for anyone who wants to like know what does she mean when she says open and close, close is that her husband could only work for KPMG, he couldn't work for any other company within Canada. Jade had an open one, which means that she could work for anyone in Canada. Yeah. Not necessarily PwC, but obviously with familiarity, I'm sure that was one of the reasons that you went with them. You said that there was like this procedures that you had to go through with regards to like the medical and all of that. Were there any like upfront costs that you had to pay, then what your company or the companies reimburse at a later stage, or was everything just out of pocket for you?
So everything for us, thankfully, was covered by the company, including like our flights. But I would say like, even though I did a transfer to PwC, they gave me a sort of relocation allowance. And I think that money I could have used for like the medical and sort of everything to get over as well. So I think even if we didn't go the secondment route, that still would have been covered through sort of that relocation.
Okay, that makes sense. And it's a lot of companies do give the relocation allowances, which is great and works. But usually with the relocation allowance, it also means that you need to stay with the company for a certain amount of time so that you can kind of like earn the relocation allowance. Was there a time period that you had to stay with them?
Yes, I think it was 2 years.
That sounds.
I think it was 2 years, yeah. And then so Nathan had that clause, and then I also had the same clause.
Okay. And then how?
That's quite interesting because, like, I think PwC and KPMG, like, sometimes they help you even to get like your permanent residency.
Oh, nice.
Even after your work permit, and then I think that's normally like tied to another 2 years at the company. Basically, what we did is we came over on our work permits, and then after about a year, we applied for our permanent residency.
Oh, that's great. And then how long did it take, like from the time when KPMG said, you know, Nathan has the job, you guys can come over? How long did it take from that point till you got onto the plane and left for Canada?
I think we might have started the process in September, October 2018, and then we left to leave February 2019.
So what's that, October, November, December, January, February? So about 5 months, 5 to 6 months.
It was like very quick. And at the same time, we were planning a wedding as well. So it was a lot. It's actually so funny. Like in the week of the wedding, I was like literally sitting at a hair appointment. They were busy like coloring my hair. And then Nathan calls me and he's like, I just got a call now to say that there was like a medical exam opening, like we need to leave in the next 30 minutes.
Oh my.
So this lady literally had to like rinse the stuff off my hair. I had to go with wet hair to go do my medical test because that was like the only available like opening. But yeah, thankfully like everything like really worked very well. Surprisingly, everything fell into place very quickly. So it was really a smooth process for us.
And for your medical, did you like need to get any vaccinations, any shots, anything like that? Or was it kind of just like a standard physical test?
I think it was just a standard physical. They take you like your weight and your height, and I think they take some blood and ask you about like your history. Okay. I also think they did x-rays.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I think that was mainly it. Nothing overly crazy, but still quite expensive.
So medicals can usually be very expensive. Like even here in the States, it's quite expensive. I think it's like anything from $500 to $1,000.
Wow.
Like 30 minutes, some blood work and a few vaccinations.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So it's a bit dramatic, but in any case.
Really?
Yeah, I was like, I don't want to see that.
Yeah.
But other than that, it was fun. So you are finally in Vancouver, you're with your husband, you're starting your new job. What was one of the things that you had to get used to about being in Vancouver compared to obviously living in Cape Town the majority of your life?
I think the first thing we landed in February and it was flipping cold. And you know what? I think like I don't want to say I'm a lot used to it now, but I will say I have the proper clothing for the climate. But at the time, it was like snowing outside, and I'm like wearing a leather jacket because that's like the warmest jacket I've
Oh
got.
no,
So it was like it was a little bit painful in the very beginning.
you didn't
Um,
go over with like a K-way. You were just like leather jacket.
what I was thinking, I don't even know. I didn't even have a K-way. I think I had like some thermals on underneath, but like I don't know what I was thinking. Um, but yeah, I think like the climate was a big thing. Even now, it's still like a little bit of a challenge. Vancouver's like out of Canada, it's very mild in comparison to the rest of the provinces. I know some provinces in winter goes down to like minus 40 degrees.
Oh no.
Yeah, I know. So like it's really not that bad here. It's just a bit of a challenge, like in winter, especially like when you get up and you go to work, it's dark. When you leave, it's dark. Like
Oh,
some days you will literally not even see the sun. And it rains a lot as well. But I mean, summer's fantastic, like 10 out of 10.
well,
But
that's the
winter
nice
is
thing.
like a bit painful.
Oh goodness. Yeah, that's the nice thing about living like kind of like on the East Coast
Yeah.
is that winter is harsh, but your summers you can live it up. It
Yes.
is hot and it's like a good time at the beach and everything. So
Yes.
you're there,
And
you keep
don't you think it's like so funny that like people of like they live for summer,
oh yeah.
right? Like people in like South Africa's like obviously people get excited over like festive season and the
Yeah,
weather's good, but
December.
like not to the same degree here.
Oh no. People like love for summer and fall.
Yes.
Like the 1st of September hit and it was like spice pumpkin latte, all that stuff. And I was like, what is going on?
Yes.
They like live for it.
Yeah.
So you're getting used to the climate. You got here, it's like freezing cold. One of the things you have to do is obviously get an apartment, right? So what was that search like and what is the average cost of like a 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom, depending on what you got in Vancouver?
So maybe I'll tell you. So when we first got here, we actually had someone like helping us out to sort of like set up our bank account and get our sort of social security numbers and find a place. Um, so that was like quite helpful for us. But then sort of like later on, like a year and a half in, we sort of moved on our own. So I would say in terms of like finding an apartment, it was mainly just like a matter of like going on to, well, from our experience, it was just from going on to Craigslist and like finding anything sort of like within your search parameters in whichever area you're looking at. Um, which is like pretty easy to like find places to go and see, but it's like super, super competitive.
Mm.
And we realized that like when the sort of like the consultant was taking us around when we first arrived, like whenever we'd go to like a viewing, while we sort of like looking at the place, he's speaking to the realtor and basically like trying to sell us. And he's like, oh, like they've got good jobs, they're working at this company, like yes, they're like responsible. And I think you just normally think like you wouldn't have to like sell yourself to like an agent, right? Normally you'd think like, oh, they just take whoever like comes there, but it was quite a sort of competitive process. And yeah, I think another thing that actually quite surprised me is that like you have to move like pretty fast. So if you like decide you like a place, maybe like within 2 days you need to like sign the forms to
Oh
like move
wow.
in there by the end of the month. So it's not like even when we were sort of like looking at places in South Africa, like going online and looking for places in Canada, it's not like you can even like look in advance or anything because the turnaround is like so quick.
Yeah, they basically
So
want you in soon so that they can get their money.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. And it's like if I'm like, what's the day today? Yeah. If I'm like looking now, it's like, okay, they want you to move in like sometimes they'd even ask you to move in like 10 days forward or like at by the end of the month. So it's like, it's very like, very, very quick. Everything goes very fast. But yeah, like, I mean, we did it.
Yay!
And then so when we rented, we rented a 2-bedroom apartment at that time. That was in 2019, and we were paying about like $2,600.
Oh my
But then
God.
I did a bit of a Google search now. I was looking for like 1-bedroom apartments in Vancouver, and they said that the average cost starts from like $2,000
Are you
for.
kidding me?
So I think that, but there's always been like better value for money for like 2 bedrooms. So I think if you're coming on your own, share with someone. But
What?
yeah, like housing here is like pretty wild.
That is insane. That's like the highest I've heard on the channel to date. Even my experience, because I'm currently in a 2 bedroom and it's not as high as 2.7.
Yeah.
That is,
You know what it is? I think like firstly, I think Canada has like very, very big like immigration goals. So lots of people are always coming here. I think people like the climate, and there's like a lot of outdoor things to do. And like one of the, I want to say, I'm gonna guess like maybe top 10 like ski resorts is like in Vancouver as well. So I think like there's always a very, very big influx of people coming here and wanting to sort of like buy or rent or whatever.
and I know another thing is that a lot of people, because they know it's very difficult to get into the States, it's like ridiculously difficult. They always like go to Canada and then make your way to the States from Canada. Like once you get your like your citizenship or your PR
Yeah,
in Canada, then go over to the States. So a lot
yeah,
of people also kind of like use it as the bridge.
yeah,
So I can see why like so many people are attracted to moving there. And obviously demand and supply,
yeah,
the prices are going to increase if there's a lot of
yeah,
people coming in.
yes.
And I
And
mean,
also like it's one of those things where like because like real estate's like very, very lucrative here.
oh wow.
Because of the demand, right? So I think like a lot of people even like put their investments in sort of like real estate.
Makes sense. So you have your apartment, you and your husband are happy, you have shelter from the cold.
Yeah.
Tell us about, tell us about food prices, and is it like more expensive to obviously go eat out than what it is to cook and like do grocery shopping, and like, or like what's your average grocery shopping spend for the week?
I think our spend for the week is like about $100,
Not
I
bad.
think. Yeah. Um, actually it's funny because it's a bit difficult for us to like even figure it out because so previously we were paid like twice a month on the 15th and on the 30th or the last day, whatever. And now when like myself and Nathan moved to new jobs, we paid every 2 weeks. But between me and him, we are on alternating weeks.
So you
So
get
it's
paid
like,
every week.
yeah, but it's so difficult to like manage our money now. But yeah, anyway, it's like, so it's $100 a week, I would say, for like just doing grocery shopping, which I think is okay. But then, yeah, when it comes to like eating out, it's very, very, very expensive. So I think maybe like takeouts for us would be like $25-$30 for a meal.
Like per
Um,
person?
no, well, together.
Okay.
And that's not a nice takeout. That's like a failed night.
Do they have that thing? Do they have?
Not really, no,
Uh,
no.
it's probably like McDonald's and like
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, like if you go to KFC, the chicken is golden. Like there in South Africa, it's in like that old dirty oil and it tastes delicious. It's not the same here. But yeah, so like eating out is very expensive. And I think like a lot of that's driven by like the cost of labor. Like I think our minimum wage here is like $16 an hour. So
That's good.
basically anything that involves like a lot of like labor or like people's time would generally be quite expensive.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
like just to kind of like put it on a scale, if you had to go and buy McDonald's, like a Big Mac, how much would that like be more or less?
I think a Big Mac, I'm gonna get this wrong actually. I think a Big Mac meal's maybe like $13.
No, stop it.
$13.
Stop
Yeah.
it. It's expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
That's
quite expensive.
very expensive. I think over here it's definitely under 10. Outside
Really?
between 7 and 9, I think. I don't think it's that expensive. And even over here, you can get like um two burgers or 3 for 2 or something like that. So like $3 for 2 burgers.
Hmm.
My
Yeah,
husband
no,
usually
it's
gets
really
that
very
then.
expensive. Yeah,
Oh my
very expensive.
goodness.
But I think it's because like your minimum wage rates is a lot lower, right?
Yes, that is correct. It's very sad. Yeah, yeah, it's very
And now it's like ours is at a good place, but I can't even go to McDonald's.
sad.
I must might eat the
Can't even
place
get
and I've
some
got it home.
tasty chicken.
Exactly.
Oh
It's
my goodness.
expensive. It's very expensive. But you know what? You do adapt. Like obviously in South Africa, you'd go like every, Friday after work, go for drinks every single week, and it won't
Don't.
affect you like that much, right? Yeah, you might just go out once a month and just sip on that one cocktail.
It's like you and your husband have to work carefully every month on that
Yeah,
budget. Like, we can't go this week, only
yeah,
next week.
yeah.
Oh my word,
But
no,
I
I
think
know
it
that
just takes
feeling.
a while to sort of like get used to how cheap certain things are and how expensive other things are.
Yes,
Like I
I,
think here, like goods are pretty cheap. So like clothing and like appliances and things like that is like pretty cheap. Like, yeah. So I think it's like, yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't say it balances out, but
yeah.
there are like some pros and cons, like cost wise.
Do you guys also have like these? I wouldn't say outlets, but we have like discount stores like TJ Maxx and Marshalls and like Burlingtons and things like that. So you would still get like some designer brands, like the lower end designer brands for like really cheap. You could get like a dress for under $20 and it will
They
still look cute.
must come down there, eh?
Come do
Uh,
your shopping here,
we
girl.
don't really have that, or not that I know of. But I will say that sometimes the sales here are like pretty good, and I'm sure it's the same there
Yeah.
by you. Like you can like pick up things for like pretty cheap on sale. So
Okay. And
yeah.
then I also wanted to ask with regards to like any tax things that you had to fill out or had to make sure that you get a tax number. I know that in some countries you have to get this tax number, otherwise they'll like deduct more tax than what they should from your salary initially, and then later they'll reimburse you. Is there anything like that in Canada, or do you kind of just like do the taxes and then based on like your social security?
No, there's nothing like that. Yeah, I think it was pretty straightforward for us. I think we like within our first like 2 days here, we went to, I don't know what it's called, but like home affairs, and
Yeah.
we got our basically our SIN number. What
Mm.
does SIN stand for?
Is it SSN? Is that how you
No.
spell it?
Is it
SSN?
Social Security?
Yeah, your social security number.
Yeah, I think it's the same. Yeah,
Yeah.
I might be wrong, but anyway, we
It's
we
like
got
your
sort of like that.
ID, but more important than your ID. For
Yeah,
some reason, like your ID
not
is
even
more,
out.
yeah. Like your ID, everybody wants it in South Africa, but you don't provide your social security to anyone
Yeah,
like the side of the world. Like only like to the banks, and obviously if you're like doing like mortgages and like rental agreements and things like that, so they can pull your credit, but no other reason because they will identity theft your butt.
yeah.
You will be in so much debt after that.
On that day, I will say that the scams here in Canada are so sophisticated. Like, I promise you, like, we had like people like calling us, telling us like from the CRA, telling us about like our taxes and like, please provide this like information. And it's so believable.
Oh,
Like, so believable. Wow. Like, I was blown away in a positive way by how good the scams are here.
I haven't seen
I
any
never
good.
fall for it though.
That's good. Yeah, that's because you have training.
Yeah.
You have training from the big four not to fall for those things.
Yeah.
I think once I got like a letter saying that I have a relative that passed away like in England
Oof.
and there's this big inheritance that's coming my way, but I just like need to contact them. I'm like, this is nonsense. Delete. Like,
Yeah.
you can't
This
do
is nonsense, but just in case, I'll just give him a call.
that's how you get scammed. That's how you get
Yeah.
scammed, right? Oh, awesome. And then, with regards to pharmacies was a big thing for me to kind of get used to over here, because they have like these big chains, and also like their medication here is very weak for me. Like you won't get like Mybulin or something that's an equivalent. It's rather like just paracetamol. That's all you get. Was there anything like that in Canada, like where you wish you had your South African medication, like for colds and flus, because theirs is just so weak?
I'm probably not a very good person to speak on this because, you know, my health is like 100. I never get sick.
Oh, wow.
I did have COVID like a month ago, but besides that, I'm pretty good, like health-wise. But honestly, I think it would probably be similar to like what you experience, seeing that we like
Yeah, because
basically sister
I have
countries.
friends in Europe that are also like struggling. So, side note to anyone that wants to move abroad, make sure you take your immune with you, your currency, your ACC 2000 or 200, whatever it's called.
Yeah,
Make sure you take your Vicks and your Benadryl and all that stuff.
yeah,
Take it in your bag with you.
yeah. And that's also like another thing. Like obviously, all of the products that you used to using at home, like they generally won't have it here. I think it's probably a bit better like in the UK because there's a lot of like overlap between products, but it's a lot of sort of like figuring out like what's the most similar product and like sort of what works for you, which is, yeah, it's a journey.
And then, Jade, what has the traveling been like? You've been in Vancouver for a few years now. What has the traveling been like to other parts of Canada or North America or Europe or wherever you've been to?
I'm actually not gonna lie, it's actually been not that great because so we came over in 2019 and then we booked this wonderful Euro trip for 2020.
Oh, goodness.
Supposed to be in Italy in the heart of the pandemic, and
Oh,
obviously all
no.
of that fell through. So 2020 we didn't go anywhere. 2021 we were mostly here in Canada, and then at the end of the year we took a trip back to South Africa.
Okay, great.
And a few days into our trip, the flipping new variant came out. We had to wow, like getting home was like such a big challenge. Um, and it wouldn't have been as important if we were still with like KPMG and PwC. But Nathan and I were both starting jobs like the first week of January.
Oh, goodness.
So we like really struggled to get back, but eventually we sort of had to cut our trip short and come back home. And what other travel have I done? Oh, we went to Mexico this year. That was pretty like easy. It's sort of like a 5-hour flight down. Nice resorts, nice beaches, nice to sort of escape to like a better climate.
Yeah.
And I think most of the other trips that we've been doing has mainly been like, I would say local around BC. And then we've done a few trips down to Seattle. I think it's like a 2-hour drive to cross the border. So that's pretty easy for us. I will say like travel and like flying in Canada can be like very, very expensive. Like you guys have it easy there. In the US, yes.
Where, Jade? Where?
I saw one of those like $100 like tickets.
Those are like, I want to say like, yes, you do get sometimes with these cheaper airlines, but you pay for every single thing.
Yeah.
So a carry-on, everything you pay on. So then it comes out to 300 or something afterwards.
Which is still cheap.
Okay, so what do you guys pay?
If I must look at a ticket now from Vancouver to Toronto, which is, it's far, it's like a 5-hour flight.
Yeah.
I'm sure it will be like $700. And that's just in Canada. Yeah.
Oh, that's ridiculous. But I've also seen those type of flights over here. I've seen like flights like going over to California, which is on the opposite side on the West Coast. It's a lot. I know a girl, she had to go back home to Tennessee and she was in Dallas. Her flight was over $1,000. It's the same country.
Yes. And it makes sense. But I get it, like, yeah. I mean, the US is very, very big.
Yes, it's a continent.
And I think it's just unfortunate for us in Canada that like Canada is very wide. Right. So I think it's quite a distance, and obviously airport taxes and all of those things. But funny enough, like when we went to South Africa last year, our ticket back home was only like $1,000, which is quite cheap for flying that far. So I don't know, it's a bit funny.
Is it really, Jade?
What?
Is it really, Jade? Flying
Even
over $1,000?
$700 to Toronto or $1,000 to South Africa.
It makes sense. It makes sense to go. It makes sense to go. No, but that's about the same price that my then boyfriend paid for, I think, all three of his tickets when he came, because he came thrice. He paid 1,000 each time. But when it's a good time of year, I think the tickets go for about 700, 800 from here over to South Africa. It's quite
That's
expensive.
not bad.
Yeah,
Oh,
it will
okay.
be more expensive than it is from like Ireland or the U or Europe. There
Yeah.
you probably pay at a good time of year, obviously not Christmas, around like 500 to 600
Oh,
for
that's not bad.
return, which is good. I mean, we would want those prices, right?
Yeah.
But we're starting with $1,000, which is like what right now, over 17,000 rand for
Yeah.
flying back home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the only one thing I will like caution anyone who's like wanting to move to Vancouver. I do think it's the best province in Canada, but it's literally like the end of the earth. Like,
What do you
I
mean?
think in terms of like time zone, it is like painful. I think we're like 8 or 9 hours behind South Africa.
In
And then in
Vancouver.
terms of flights, flying home, it's like when we did our trip in December, I think it was like 10 or 11 hours to London and then another 10 hours to South Africa. So
So you flew with British and you went up all the way up and then you came all the way down. So there are no direct flights.
no.
I think for you going forward, I know that there's a direct flight from New York, and I think there's a direct flight coming in from where I am in Washington, D.C. That might be easier because I think that's a 19-hour straight flight.
Oh, that's not bad. 19.
Yes.
I didn't even know that they had flights that long.
Yeah, it's next time you must wear your compression socks. You must, you
You have
must
to
make
like
sure that you
feel.
it's it's hectic because my when we got married, my husband took that flight to South Africa. So, but he was in business class, so he was living the best his best.
I can't even feel sorry for him, eh?
When I found out he was business, I was like, this is so unfair. I have to fly back in economy. What the heck?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I actually think it makes like for us and what we'll probably do like next time to like do a flight, maybe stop over for a day or two somewhere and then come through to South Africa. I
Because
think it makes sense.
it's a really long time to be in the air for. And I remember like whenever I fly that long, I always feel like my legs are like so compressed.
Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable. So yeah, for all those that want to travel to this side of the world, just know the flights are long, like minimum 19 hours.
Yeah.
If there's no like layover anywhere else. So keep that in mind too. And then Jade, is the last question. Is there any advice that you would give to somebody that's considering moving to Canada, any province in Canada, and maybe they have fears about moving and need some encouragement? Do you have anything to say to them?
I think, you know what? I think you must just like try and equip yourself with like the right information. And I think like just reaching out to people will sort of get you there. Like you're happy, like feel free to like contact me if you sort of need more information on it. But I think people are like so willing to help. Like there's even like a Facebook group for South Africans in Vancouver or in South Africans in Canada, and like just getting in touch with someone there and they're very happy to sort of like take you through the process and sort of give you sort of the information to get here. And you know, I think it also like a lot of times it feels like a very big leap, but and it is kind of a big deal, like moving across to the other side of the world. But I mean, if things don't work out or if you don't like it, like you can just leave, right? There's no like real commitment. I mean, you might have to pay back your relocation or whatever, but um, like nothing's permanent.
Yeah.
So um, while it is a big deal, don't let it like overwhelm you too much. And I think what I've noticed also, like a lot of people are asking me about going to sort of like these agencies that sort of help you get set up. And in all honesty, like maybe like my husband and I, we didn't do our work permit, but we did our like permanent residence on ourselves by ourselves. And in all honesty, that was like quite an easy process. Like you don't need to sort of overcomplicate it. Go onto the website, read what you need, see if you can qualify. They do like a lot of tests on there to see like sort of like what your points and what your score will be. And just apply yourself and like see if it makes sense and reach out for information from there. I will say like there's obviously ups and downs when it comes to relocating. I'm sure you know as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, like we really are like enjoying the place. Like summer is fantastic. There's a lot of, I will say like Vancouver is very much like an outdoorsy place. Like people will go home early on a Saturday night to go do a 5 a.m. Hike in the next morning,
Oh,
right?
it's
So like
amazing.
that's sort of like the culture here, like hiking and snowboarding and mountain biking. So it is like definitely like a lovely place to be in. And yeah, like actually funny enough, like there's a certain time of the year where you can actually go snowboarding and then come down the mountain and literally go golfing on the same day because the sun is out,
Oh,
but
wow.
there's still snow on the mountain. So yeah, it's definitely like a lovely place to be in. And I definitely describe like Vancouver to be more of a Cape Town and Toronto to be more of like a Joburg.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
I've never heard that comparison. I
I mean, not in terms of like how they look, but I guess like this is obviously a lot more like visually appealing.
oh, you mean
I
okay.
think in terms of like economy and like a lot of the workforce or like you'd probably find like the job market is maybe a bit better in Toronto. Um, but yeah, Vancouver is awesome. I don't think I would have gone anywhere else in Canada, to be honest.
And Jade is absolutely right. Go and ask people, and there are loads of like groups on Facebook. You won't believe. I think I belong to a group called South African Women in Canada and the USA, and there's so much
Yeah,
support on there. Yeah.
invite me.
I literally posted last week about a peppermint tart that I made, and it was like everyone was like, "Oh my god, you need that support from
Yes,
women from South Africa, you know." So I will invite you on Facebook. I'll send
yes,
you a
please
link
do.
to you. But
Yeah,
so many questions that people ask, and people are so willing to answer your questions about moving to Canada, moving to the USA. So do that, and thank you so much for offering your services of also being awesome
a
questions.
pleasure.
I'll put your name, your Instagram name, so people can like DM you on here and everything.
Yeah,
And thank you so much for sharing your insights, your journey with us, your story. Definitely it's going to encourage somebody out there to take that step to go out and move. And so many of the times on the show we have single people, but yeah, you did it with your husband. So now married couples, you also have an example, an encouragement to go and move out of whichever country you're in, especially if you're in South Africa, if that's what you want to do. And we wish you all the best, Jade. Thank you so much for being on Chat
thank
with
you.
Charnie, you and Nathan. May you guys be blessed and just like continue living such a prosperous and joyful life in Vancouver.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. And to everyone else, bye.